We can all lead somebody. Good? All right.
Well, it's better not to walk on the carpet.
1, 2, and 3. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right, for our first topic of discussion today, we're going to be talking about mental health. So I was asked to talk about 3 things today. One was mental health, the other was Corona SARS-CoV-2, and the last one we're going to be talking about is plan and purpose. We will go to the board for this, and then we will go to the Bible, because mental health can largely be helped by the promises of God, besides just some of the other things that we're going to talk about here today. So mental health is a big topic. We're going to basically look at an overview and try to get some of the principles. So if we ourselves are struggling, or we know someone else that is struggling, we can be able to help them. Either way, we're going to be able to talk about this. Now, first of all, we want to know that depression is either falls under 2 categories. It's either metabolic or it's situational. Metabolic has to do with the body and the imbalances that come if the body doesn't get enough of certain things, or if it's placed in an environment where it's getting too much of certain things. So metabolic, we're going to discuss more about how the body can become imbalanced just on its own. Situational is depression that is caused by some sort of trauma, some sort of past event, some sort of present event. And we're going to talk more about that. It's not really possible to divide the 2. It's not possible because the body sympathizes with the mind and the mind with the body. So we're told that 9/10 of all disease begin in the mind. And so it's important as we go through mental health to keep in mind this concept. You can come in and grab seats. Come in and grab seats. That's all right. Welcome. Yeah. Nice to have you.
Regulars are here.
So grab a seat. As they're coming in. So we can't divide the 2. So if you're depressed or you know someone that is depressed, then it's going to go together. So let me just give you a quick example of how that works. And let me just make a broad statement. So if there's anything that you want to go away with after this presentation, this is going to be one of those things. So I'm just going to say that statement. There's a lot of things happening. I'm just going to say that statement right now. Unhappy people get sick. I'm going to repeat the statement. Unhappy people will 100% of the time get sick. If you're unhappy and you have been chronically unhappy for a long time, you're sick already. Now, you might not have been diagnosed with the sickness, but you're sick already. The reason why I'm so sure of this is because every single patient that I have ever treated for any illness under the sun, and I've treated everything from cancer and autoimmune disease to simple things like an ear infection or skin trouble, all of them have some sort of unhappiness going on. The only disease category that is not associated with the state of the mind are diseases that come through vector carrying agents. Example, a mosquito that might bite you and give you malaria, a tick that may bite you and give you Lyme's disease. Otherwise, if you have cancer, if you have diabetes, if you have autoimmune disease, if you have high blood pressure, if you had a stroke, somewhere in your life you've had a prolonged time of sadness, of mental health trouble. And the reason for this is simply because the body sympathizes with the mind. Similarly, if the body is really, really severely stressed and it's just not doing right, and you might have known this if you've ever been sick, then it's quite easy for you to fall into self-pity. You become depressed. You just don't feel like if the sun is necessarily shining on you at that particular time. And so there is an interaction both with the body and the mind. I want you to keep this in mind as I first give you a scenario, and you tell me what you think. So Jane is married to Tom. Tom likes Jane's best friend, Carrie. After a while, Tom is cheating on Jane with Carrie. Tom and Jane have been married for 25 years. Jane and Carrie have been best friends since middle school. Finally, Tom decides, yeah, he likes the other woman. And out comes the secret. Tom is going to now leave with Carrie, and they're going to go to Hawaii for, I guess, some fun in the sun. And Jane is left by herself, and she is troubled with several sorts of emotional distress. One, she can't believe her husband of 25 years would do this. Two, how could Carrie, her friend that has been her friend so long, how could she ever do this? And in her mind, in her mental state, there's a lot of things happening. Now let me ask you, of the three people, Tom, the cheating husband, Carrie, the cheating best friend, and Jane, the good wife and faithful friend, which of the three are most likely to get sick?
The wife.
You're right. Jane is the only one that's most likely to get sick. And in fact, there are countless women and countless men of this sort that have several different stages of cancer, simply because they haven't been able to deal with all that the mental stress has caused. Tom, though, and Carrie, they're perfectly fine, because at this point, they're happy, enjoying that pleasure that comes from sin for a season. So their bodies are doing great. So keep that in mind as we go through, because we're going to need to get into relational issues and how we can fix that in order to help mental health. All right, so if you have any of these things, and let's talk about them first of all. So if you have a deep sadness, what's deep sadness? It has to do with feeling empty. Now, I've had people tell me they feel empty. They just don't feel full of anything. They feel like if they're in a dark place. They feel as if the darkness is even tangible, I've had people tell me. And it can be very true, and you can come near to people that the atmosphere around them, Sister White says there's an atmosphere around all of us, and the atmosphere is dark, and you can feel that. Apathy. Apathy means you have a loss of interest. You have a loss of interest in life. Whatever it is that you were excited about before, so if you enjoyed cooking, no, it doesn't do that for you. If you enjoyed riding your bike, you'd rather stay in bed all day. You're just not interested in anything. Sleep disturbances. Every person, I shouldn't say every, most persons, because there are always exceptions to every rule, most persons that have some sort of mental health trouble, they usually have sleep disturbances, and they become what we call children of the night. They stay up all night to all sorts of hours, and they want to sleep in the day. They become children of the night. Weight. So weight can go either way. You can have weight gain or weight loss depending on how you handle depression. So some people will eat and overeat and just keep eating and stay on the couch and just keep eating. And some people will stop eating. They'll refuse to eat and they'll suffer weight loss very quickly. So it just depends. A lack of concentration. Inability to make good decisions. People that are in some sort of mental health trouble, they're unreasonable. You know, you may go to someone to ask them about a simple thing that in any other time they might be able to give you a good thought, a good counsel, good advice. But if they're not in a good place mentally, they tell you things that are off the wall, really. It doesn't make a lot of sense. They have a hard time concentrating on the problem, on the thing you're telling them, to give you anything that actually is worthwhile. Unworthiness. So you feel a sense of unworthiness, you feel a sense of failure. I am not good at anything, I can't do anything, it's never going to do right, I'll never be able to do it like Jane because I'm not good enough. So many people have this sense of unworthiness, a sense of failure, a sense of I can't do it right, I'll never do it right. Morbid thoughts. Anybody that has mental health trouble begins to think all sorts of negative things. Some of it is really dark. When I was in Parima and we were actually dealing with somebody that was demon-possessed, it's really dark. And so they start thinking and particularly, and it was a young girl I was dealing with, she was no more than 15 years old. She began drawing things because she was having dreams, nightmares. And in her nightmares, the pictures that she was drawing were so dark and they were occultic. So she was drawing things that she had never seen, but they were evident on the picture. So somebody was planting some thoughts in her mind. Is it possible for the devil to put thoughts in our minds? Yeah. Of course, we call that temptations. And for the person with mental health trouble, all sorts of thoughts can go through the mind. Thoughts of harming oneself, thoughts of harming other people. All sorts of thoughts can fly through the mind. And we're going to talk about how we can control those thoughts. The other thing that happens with people that have mental health trouble is a lack of energy. The only time this is not the case is when you're dealing with somebody who's bipolar, and then their energy levels go like this. It'll shoot up, and they'll be like, blah, 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 I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do it, I want to. And then it'll crash into, I don't really want to do anything, you know. I just want to stay here. And they'll go up and down like that. And that's pretty much how you know that somebody is maniac depressive. That's what you call it. But for most people that are mentally disturbed, whether it's postpartum depression, it doesn't really matter. You just don't want to do anything. You just want to lay in bed and just leave me alone. And usually you close all the blinds because you've really become a child of the darkness. So we want to get out of that state, and we want to get into a better state. So we're going to talk about some of the things that cause this. We're going to talk about some of the things that we can do about it. And to do so, causes of dysfunction. So let's look at some of the causes of dysfunction that exist and may exist in our lives. We'll be able to find it. The first one is inheritance. Now, anybody here can raise their hand that had really good parents and their parents had really good parents and their parents had really good parents. And so maybe 5 generations back, you know that you came from good people and they were all good. Anybody? Okay, yeah. So unless you fall into that category, which is very, very rare, you probably fall into the category of normal. And normal means that one or both of your parents had problems. That's actually normal. If that's the case, then you've inherited certain genes. Scientists right now are doing a lot of gene therapy, and I'm interested in gene therapy, but not so much. Let me tell you why. So what we found, and I'll give you an example of T. Colin Campbell in his book, The China Study. He found a gene that one can inherit from one's parents for cancer. So, you know, if you go to the doctor, they'll ask you if the cancer run in the families, you know, any of your aunts has it, does your mom or your father? Okay, that's because genes run. So he found the gene for cancer. And genes are like a loaded gun. And it has a bullet in the chamber. And what he found in his studies is that you could pull the trigger with a particular protein, and in his case, he was using the protein found in milk, which is casein. You can pull the trigger and fire the gene so that it expresses itself and affects your life. It's actually called gene expression. Or you can not do the thing that fires the gun, and all you would have is a loaded gun for the rest of your life that's never fired, and you call that gene suppression. So whatever you've inherited from your family, so if you had an alcoholic father, a crazy mother, I don't know, these things are real. Whatever you had, did you inherit things? Yes. Is it in you? Yes. Can it come out of you? Yes. But only if you live a life that causes it to. If you don't, and if you live a life that God would have you live, your gun will just be in you. It'll never pull the trigger, and your genes will not affect your life. And this is very true. So we want to keep that in mind when we think about inheritance. But maybe some people have already pulled the trigger, and they've already had gene expression. Well, guess what? Reversals of doing the thing that caused it will cause the bullet to go back into the gun. And Tico and Campbell actually proved this in his studies with cancer. And so there are women and people that are doing things because they have the genetics that is unnecessary. How you live your life, the reason why genes and different behaviors and different diseases run in families is because lifestyle runs in families. That's why. But if you change the lifestyle, you turn off the gene. And if you turn off the gene, and your daughter turns off the gene, and her daughter turns off the gene, then the next generation, they actually don't even get the gene. And this is true, because if you remember in the 10 Commandments, the Lord said, forgiving iniquity onto the
34th generation.
It's actually scientific. It's very scientific. So we want to remember that in terms of inheritance as one of the reasons of dysfunction.
So Eve was implanted with a gene which got passed down to Cain and Abel.
Sin. Sin
And then
causes
the trigger was pulled.
sin causes mutation, genetic mutations. It's like a thing. Anyway. Environment. Environment has to do with circumstances. So we're going to pause here because this is a huge one. Circumstances. I was molested when I was 4. So in my work in Guyana, what I've been doing for the last 12 years in my village, and the village that I come from is particularly degraded. Maybe 90% of all the children in my village have been molested. Maybe that figure is higher. And so I've dealt with a lot of young children, very young, that are confused. They don't understand why dad does this, or uncle does this, or grandpa does this. And the reasons, at least in my village, is because of alcohol. Alcohol will make a man see strange women, even his daughter. Alcohol confuses the mind. But there are all sorts of circumstances and trauma that can trigger a mental episode with people. And we need to deal with those traumas. So let me say right off the bat, the next most important thing I'm going to say. If you have a past grievance that you haven't addressed, you cannot, notice the words, cannot move forward into the future. Now, what does that mean? That means that we have to take and follow the laws that God has given us. And He's given us some laws in terms of relational episodes. One of those things He's given us is confess your sins, and He is faithful to forgive us of all our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. That's if you've done something. Some of us have done bad things in our lives, really bad things, and we blame ourselves. So I've been dealing with one lady who blames herself because when she was younger and she had her children, she was into alcohol and drugs, and she would leave her children at home alone when they were very young, go out and party and live that life. And while she was away, things would happen at home that if she had been more clear in her mind, would have and should never have happened. And her children now have become a product of those things. And she says, it's my fault. And she's perfectly right. It is her fault. However, we're told in the great exchange that the Bible tells us that Jesus takes our sin and gives us His righteousness. He takes our fault and gives us His innocence. And so for the person struggling with that, we must be able to accept that gift in order that we can move forward. If, though, somebody has done something to you, then you must forgive, because God will thus forgive us. Forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself. Forgiveness does not excuse the act done to you. It's a gift that you give yourself because God asks of the gift. And you give it because He asks for it and you love Him. So give yourself that gift if you've had something, and let go of that. Jesus does not only take our fault, He takes our baggage. He wants all the pain, all the grief, everything, so that when you look back in your past, all you must see is Jesus. And Jesus' past is beautiful.
Amen.
Right? So we want to keep that, and we want to take that because it's a real promise and it's a real gift. And all you have to do is pick it up. It's right there. In fact, every single soul has the gift of salvation in their homes. All you have to do is pick it up. That's all you have to do. So we want to keep that in mind. Now, I found many people, they're bleeding out. That's hard to explain. Many people have had something happen to them in their lives. So they've been stabbed in the back. Their brother taunted them. Their sister taunted them. And you have to fix these things. So, for example, my mom did something when I was very young. My mom is incredible, just saying. But my mom did something once when I was incredibly young. Maybe I was, 7 or 8 or something. She had like a moment of madness. The pressures got to her. And she did something once. It was like for maybe an hour. And that's all I got from my mom in my whole life. An hour of one moment of madness. and I remember when I was in my 20s telling her, but Mom, what you did was so bad. That was so wrong. And she said, and you still remember that? And she said, oh, I'm so sorry I did that. That's when she said that. No, I never used to think about it. But when she said, I am so sorry I did that 1 hour moment of madness when I was younger, I felt good. I just did. That did something for me. So even though it may be something that was done in the past that you did or something that did to you, some of us taunted our siblings. You're a fat, chubby one, or you got strange eyes or something like that. And then you grew up. Go find those people and say, I'm very sorry. I'm sorry I told you had funny eyes. I think your eyes are okay. It matters because many people are walking around with burdens. They're walking around with bleeding wounds. And God is right here waiting to help us. So we have to be able to get this under control, and this only comes with the Lord for mental illness. Raw materials, not enough, or they're polluted. So what are raw materials? Not enough or polluted. You have needs because you're a creature called man, and the Lord, when he created you, gave you a certain list of needs. It's like a car. A car has certain needs. You need to put gas in the tank. You need to change the filter. You need to make sure you carry it to a mechanic every now and again to fix the arms. That's what you call them, the arms, or change the brake pads, or whatever. You need to do that, right? Similarly, humanity has needs. Your needs: food, water, air, sunlight, love, compassion, acceptance. There's a long list of emotional needs. Someone to go to, friends. You have a lot of needs. If you're not getting enough, not enough sleep, you're going to have a problem with mental health. If you're not getting enough air, you're going to have a problem with mental health. If you're not getting enough sunlight, if what you're eating is enough, but it's polluted. So if you're eating a fatty diet or a sugary diet or any such thing, you're going to get into problems. The reason for this is because all of these things affect hormones, they affect the circadian rhythm. I'm making this overly simplified just to get through it. It affects many things. Women are hormonal creatures. Any man, and I don't have a lot of them, I have 2 men and 2 boys, or 3 boys in the room. Women are hormonal creatures, exceptionally given to moodiness, far more than men. You all know this, right? No, there are some men that are moody, don't get me wrong. But women, I've spoken to so many men, husbands that are concerned because their wives at certain times of the month turns into monsters that are ready to bite their heads off at a single provocation. And they know this, and so some of the guys have figured out what time it is. This is that time of the month. They're just going to back off. And they actually have learned that and have adopted themselves to deal with their wives and their sisters and their daughters. So women need to be very, very careful with what affects emotions. Well, what does affect emotions? eating, overeating, the hormones ghrelin and leptin, which are concerned with opening the appetite and shutting it down. Women are affected very much by their sleep cycles. So if you're not getting enough sleep, and if you're not getting good quality of sleep, it's going to affect your hormones. Bottles of water. So if your water bottles are plastic, and if you're getting in too much plastic, it's going to affect your hormonal levels. And several other factors. We don't have time to talk about all of them, but they're going to affect your hormones. Some of the things that are easy fixes for women that have hormonal issues is to get some hormonal regulators. Those that get postpartum depression, hormonal regulators. What are those? Valerian, red raspberry, chase tree berry, what else? Red raspberry, chase tree berry, wild yam. What other hormonal ones is coming to my mind? There's one that I'm missing that we always prescribe. I can't remember right now. But you want to use some of those just to get your hormones back into whack. So your raw materials, not enough. Energy. Where does energy come from? Thoughts. We're told that we're electrical beings. And in the occult world, they have carried this to interesting levels on the other hand of righteousness. But the occult world does understand that humans have energy. And we do, because we're electrical beings, and electrical beings have energy. What produces energy? Thoughts. If you think right thoughts, you send down electrical currents to every cell in your body, and those cells respond to the right thoughts. If you think wrong thoughts or negative thoughts, that is sent down through electrical signals to the body, and the cells respond to negative thoughts. So how you're thinking is creating energy in the body. And this is why we're told that thoughts are so important, and we're told that out of the heart are the issues of life. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That is not a metaphor. That is a real thing. And so if you're thinking negatively, so just let me give you some, I come across this a lot. People gossip. They gossip without knowing that they're gossiping. Don't do that. It's negative. So I have some principles. If you come to tell me something about someone else, I tell you, one, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. If you want me to be an intermediate, a counselor between you and someone else, I say, okay, bring the person to me. Don't tell me anything, because I don't want to be prejudiced. And when the both of you reach before me, then start talking. If we don't do this, then we do what's called becoming false sympathizers, because we take one side, and it's very easy for humanity to do this. So if we have somebody come and tell you, for example, about his sister. My sister, she's so dirty. She has things all over the floor. She just this, and she calls me this, and she does this. And you listen to the brother, and he this about his sister. All of it first. And all you've done for him is help him dwell on more negative of his sister anyway. And you haven't helped yourself. By beholding, we become changed. And so those who do this and are constantly dwelling on the negative, even if the negative is true, you become like the people that you don't like. which is an interesting thing. But I see that happen all the time. Oh, John, he just carries on and on, and he doesn't treat me well, and he's this and that and that. And before you know it, you're just like John. The principles that God has set for us work, and whether we want them or not, that's how they go. So you need to learn how to control your thoughts. So what can somebody with mental health issues do? What can we all do in order to help our thoughts? Do that, just what I told you. Stop encouraging people to tell you the negative things about them. Have you, and when they come and they're telling you something about somebody else, have you spoken to them about it yet? Did you go and tell your husband, your wife, your sister, your brother? Did you go and tell them about it yet? If not, I do not want to hear. And when you're ready to tell me and you want me to be an intermediate, bring the other person too, so we can work it out together. Praise the Lord every single day. If you're working with somebody that's depressed, or if you're depressed, begin to praise the Lord. Look around and find some things that are good in your life. There always are things good in your life. There's a little song, count your blessings, count them one by one. There's always something. It's a beautiful autumn. Praise the Lord, and praise Him aloud. Make noise. I'm the kind of person that when I walk out, while I was in Georgia, my cousin and I went for a walk. It was a beautiful evening. We were walking in the night, and I went out and I said, "Woohoo!" And he looked at me like really funny, but I'm accustomed to making noise. In the jungle, I celebrate the Lord constantly, and I talk to Him constantly. I talk to Him about silly things. So I'll see a flower and I'll say, "Lord, well, isn't that a nice flower? That's a nice flower, right, Lord?" I mean, do you even talk to the Lord about the flower? It's kind of strange, right? But when you understand that the Lord is concerned about the sparrow that falls, then you understand He's also concerned about the flower. If you get yourself into a way so that you're constantly giving praises, you're constantly talking to the Lord, it's almost impossible to have mental health issues for any time. It's impossible, because you've trained your mind to dwell on higher things. So thoughts. The enemy that we're going to talk about today that's cause of dysfunction is an exception, not a rule. I know that everybody wants to think that they're the Job in their scenario, but really most of us are not. But Job was a perfect and upright man, a man that feared the Lord and eschewed evil. And Job had dysfunction in his mental health and in his body because of a direct attack by the enemy. The devil caused him to lose everything that he had and brought sickness upon him. It was not his fault at all. He hadn't done anything to cause this. You can come in there and take a seat right at the back here. But this is what happened to him. And so I want you to think, because humanity, again, we're very negative. We're very negative. I've heard people get sick. And I've heard people say, "I wonder what he did. He must have done something." And this ability to jump to the negative is normal to the carnal heart. And we need to retrain ourselves to not think like that, because maybe that man was a Job. I don't know. And what we shouldn't know, we should not. We're told that assumptions and suppositions are from the devil. When you don't know, just keep silence. I don't know. That works well. I don't know. I'm just going to take it easy. When we start supposing things and assuming things, our thoughts run in directions that they should never have gone. And they only are going there because we've stepped off of the platform of truth and gone away from what the Lord has said. Ignorance and presumption, the last one. What is ignorance? If you know that you're not supposed to use chocolate, and by the way, you shouldn't use chocolate or coffee or anything with caffeine or methyl-xanthines if you are depressed. Why? They are of the family of cocaine. And they have the very similar effect on the mental brain. They will cause a high and a corresponding low. And if you do that repeatedly to your body, you will short wire your brain. Remember I told you the brain is it's an electrical system. So no coffee, no caffeine. So if you know it, do it. Presumption is when we know it and we do it anyway. When we know it and we do it anyway, don't get mad because you get the effect. Just reverse it. Fix it. I find people get angry at God. I don't know if any of you have ever gotten angry at God. It's not so strange. There are many people who are angry at God because they do not understand who God is and because we think more highly of ourselves than we should, which is another topic for another time. So mental health people, no caffeine, no coffee, no sugar. Too much glucose in the brain causes the neurons to become drunk. Sugar has the ability to do to the cells just what alcohol does. If you overeat, your body produces alcohol. Did you know that? In Guyana, we call it niggeritis. That's what we call it. When you eat a big meal and then you go there, you can't. It's because you've gotten yourself drunk just a little bit. That's what happens. Fermentation in the stomach. When you eat between meals, that's what happens. Fermentation in the stomach. You're producing alcohol and it's going into your bloodstream and it's making you a little bit drunk. No caffeine, no sugar, no MSG. What does monosodium glutamate do to the brain? So in your brain, your neurons, they look kind of like that. There's a dendrite attached to a strand. And in this area here, it's called a synapse. And messages pass from one to the other, and it passes faster than you can blink. When you use MSG and foods containing that, you cause these signals to fire very rapidly. So instead of going like this, they start going like this. If you do that to this electric cord here, it's going to burn out. And that's exactly what happens in the brain. It burns out. And so we damage brain cells. We do. And so we want to be able to help ourselves out by staying away from those things that damage us. Plant-based foods are the best simply because they're the original, and the more closely we come to the original, the better for us. Some of the things that you can do for mental health, St. John's wort is worth a try. It has been shown to be as effective as all antidepressants in clinical trials. Some of the other things that you can use are herbs such as catnip, valerian root, skullcap, chamomile, passion flower. Some of the things that you can help to become children of the light and no longer children of darkness in terms of sleep disturbance: 5-HTP, tryptophan, phenyl, this one always gets me, phenylalanine, CoQ10. The brain is about 60% fat. And so you need good fats. So you need your omega-3 fats. So you need your walnuts and your chia seeds and your flax seeds. What was I thinking about? You need to follow the 8 laws of health. So you need to get out and exercise. Brain function has been seen in saffron. It improves brain function. That most expensive herb of all. Saffron improves brain function. Yeah? All right, you rig something. All right, thank you, brother. So these are some of the things that you can help with the metabolic syndrome. And again, wild yam cream, and I would use Anna's wild yam cream because it's the best. It comes out of Australia. It will make you have some strange reactions. This is the best way I can say it. But over time, it will correct imbalances in the hormones. So it's a progesterone, it's a DHEA, natural, wild yam is naturally rich in progesterone. Progesterone controls testosterone, estrogen, and gets them into the balance that they should do. You can use it on men or women, doesn't really matter. So this is an overall view of mental health. One last thing before we close, and then I'm going to take some questions if you have them. I'm going to go to my Bible because the Lord is good, and I'm going to explain something that it should be known. So I'm in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis is a beautiful book. Chapter 1, and I'm reading from verse 1. It says, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep." That is the person in mental health trouble. Void, empty, in darkness. That's the person. Just like how the earth was before God said anything. That's how God finds it. That's how God finds people today. Does the same thing. Verse 3 says, "And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Because the Holy Spirit is the only person that can help mental health, that can help anything really that has to do with anything to do down here on the earth. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. So let me ask you a question. How fast did it take before God said, "Let there be light," for light to come? As soon as he said it. So if you're depressed now, or you're going through some sort of mental trouble, how quickly, if God tells you, "Let there be light in your soul," should it take for light to come in your soul? Now, usually when I ask you like that, they dress back, they're like, they're not so sure, because they're like me. First of all, there's some things like, first of all, people can't believe the Lord would do that for you. Some people have a problem with that. The second thing, some people don't believe that it works like that. It works just like that. In Psalms 33, God says, "He spake and it was, he commanded and it stood fast." In 1 Corinthians 6, God says, "For God who commanded the light to shine out of darkness had shined in your hearts." It's the same thing. It's the same process. What is faith? Faith is believing that God's word will do what it says. It will do what it says. When? Right when it says it. Just like that. And you got to remember that God doesn't lie. Now, I could say, "Look, pigs flying out there." And you would look back and you all wouldn't expect pigs to be flying out there because you know that I'm just tricking you. But if God said, "Look, pigs are flying out there," pigs would be flying out there because it is not possible for God to lie. So if he said it, pigs would come there and they would be flying. That would be pretty interesting. And because he cannot lie, when he says, "Come unto me, all ye that are laden and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest," he means just what he says in the moment that he says it. And if it doesn't happen for you, it's because you have a lack of faith. "Will thou be made whole? Be it unto you as you have believed." That's what Yahweh said, right? Final thought comes from the story of the paralytic. When dealing with depressed people, people that are discouraged, people that are in a place of darkness, those people need help. We are living in a society that is so connected that everybody is alone. It's interesting. Everybody's on a screen. Depressed people don't need screens. Normal people don't even need screens. It was better when we had no screens. We need real connections We need real touch. The paralytic, when he came to Jesus, his faith was so small that he couldn't bring himself to do it. We're told in Desire of Ages that his friends, their faith inspired his. And they fetched him and they brought him. And when they brought him out there, and he said, I'm close. I'm close, he said. Find another way. And they did. But notice, they fetched him. Sometimes it's necessary for us to help people along. Sometimes they just don't have enough vitality themselves. And they need something to inspire their faith. By the time the paralytic reached down to the ground, his faith was strong that something was going to happen to him. And when Jesus looked at him, he first healed the situational. He didn't first heal the metabolic. He looked at him and he saw that man did it to himself. What? We're told that that man made himself that way. It was his life's choices. It was his fault. The Lord said, all right, thy sins be forgiven thee. Paralytic was good. If he died then, all was well. He was good. He was smiling so brightly. And the Lord said, because some people around you, they're always going to be the gainsayers. People are always going to talk. We need to come to the place where people's talking and their negativity doesn't affect us because we're plugged into the source that is Christ. And we have enough. We have enough for them. We draw warmth from the coldness of others. And when God said it, God said, arise up. And boy, that paralytic there, we're told from that day on, he, his family, all of them, we're going to see them in heaven. Because the Lord now healed the metabolic. And so in order to get healing, we need to not only heal the body, but in most times we need to heal the mind. And so keep that in mind. I know that right now with COVID, with a lot of things, a lot of people are under a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. Listen to this. Hear God speaking again, just like how he spoke, let there be light. God had not given you the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a strong mind. How fast should you believe that? So take that home with you. Practice the steps. If you are dealing with somebody that is depressed or in some sort of bipolar issue, you might need to use some of the herbs and some of the supplements. But the greatest thing is to get hold of the mind, so the mind will begin to practice good thoughts, thinking well, praising the Lord, memorizing the scripture, keeping yourself positive. There's a lot of negative in the world. And we have to be able to hold fast to the Lord. All right, so that's the first presentation. Any questions?
How do you use the cream?
Wild yam cream, you use it on your wrists, elbows, breasts, uterus, neck. And basically you just take it's a little bit that you take, and you put it in different places. Don't put it in the same place till the day after. So here today, there tomorrow. Yeah. Huh? Order it online. So Living Springs has it down there in Alabama. Amazon doesn't have it. There are several places. If you put in Anna's Wild Yam Cream, it'll pop up. And there are several places that has it in the US, and you can get it. It works excellently. And I mean, even for women that have infertility, women that are dealing with endometriosis, young girls that have dysmenorrhea, so they're dealing with painful meds, or any such thing, Wild Yam Cream will help to correct that. Just give yourself some time. It will make you have some symptoms. So those that I've put on it, sometimes they have hot flashes, sometimes they have colds as the body's regulating the hormones, sometimes they have greater arousal, so they want to have more sexual intercourse with their husbands or husbands with their wives. Sometimes it has less. So just give yourself a little bit at a time and allow your body to change. In about 2 months, you're going to see a difference. Actually, no, in the first month, you're going to see a difference, especially if you're dealing with painful menstruation, any kind of discomfort. First month. If you're dealing with spotting in women, first month. By the second and third month, things will change. Some people have to be on it for 3 months, some for 6, some for a year. As long as you stay on it, though, your hormones will come to the place that they should be. Yes, you can use it if you're having extreme hot flashes, extreme colds, any sort of disturbances that's affecting you. Yes, you can use Anna's Wildcat Yam Cream. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
One reason why we're not supposed to eat fruits and vegetables at the same meal is that vegetables are digested first. Fruits have more complex enzymes and they are digested last. So that when you have finished eating, absorbed from your stomach the vegetables, the sugars in the fruit have been fermenting, and when they are released by the stomach, they go to the brain, and you have the euphoria of alcohol. And it's I got this through study of Agatha Thrash's cookbook of nutrition for vegetarians, John Eccleston, T. Colin Campbell, and Ellen White's writings. We are not supposed to have more than about 3 to 4 items per meal because the mixing of too many creates stress.
Okay, thank you for the contribution.
With all of the herbs, are you just supposed to take one? You're supposed to mix them together, take them in pill form, make a tea with them? What's your recommendation?
You can do all the above, but if you're dealing with someone that's significantly impaired due to mental distress, you want to use combinations. So we usually use about 5 to 7 herb combinations. So if you're making a tea, you would use a teaspoon of each and put it in about a quart of water. Just let it steep. Drink it throughout the day. If you're using tinctures, you're going to use anywhere from 3 to 7 drops, depending on how the person is reacting to it and what kind of situation you're dealing with. Some people that are depressed or that are schizophrenic have need of sedative, and the greatest sedative that I found in the natural world is valerian. That's just what I found. I'm sure there are other substances that others have found. And for schizophrenic and for the depressed, and a lot of people become schizophrenic. For example, case in point, one young man, he became schizophrenic. He was really bright. And his parents wanted him to do really well at school. And he stopped exercising and playing sports. And all he was doing is studying. And he became unbalanced in his mind. So not only does too much play make Jack a dull boy, but if Jack is not allowed to play, Jack will become an unbalanced boy. So we need to have balance, exercise and mental work, or else we'll unbalance the mind. If we overload the system by too many sensory things, we're going to off-balance the mind. So most people with mental health do well to come out in nature and to just relax. Most of them do well by walking. Walking, exercise increases endorphins, the sunlight, the fresh air, it just helps. So yeah. Is everyone good? Yes.
I wanted to comment that herbals, my own personal experience is doing those, but they were a Band-Aid, finding out that the lack of nutrients that my body was not absorbing. And so you mentioned right at the beginning the different health issues such as Lyme's or say mold exposure. You know, you have from bites or whatnot, the Lyme's is the food intolerances, there's brain trauma, and there's even emotional trauma. How do you help people? I mean, it's been a long journey for me, but how do you know to help someone who's has those things you don't really realize, and you're looking at it with herbals, or you're looking at it maybe circumstances or thought patterns, when reality it's a deeper issue that they have not really a physical control or mental control over, that it's physical.
Okay, so when we distribute protocols, I'm not a herbalist. I don't treat you using herbs. Herbs is just one part of a larger thing. So the very first thing that I tell anybody that comes to me with any sort of disease is that they need to start juicing. Why do they need to start juicing? Because the life is in the blood. And if we can help the blood, it doesn't matter what the cause is. If the blood is able to better not only circulate, but to remove the toxins and to carry the nutrition where it has, and has the right nutrition, and that's all good. And we're going to talk about that more in the next presentation. So one of the first things we do is deal with getting you enough nutrition. The next thing that we do is talk to you about everything. So we end up finding out if you're even in a place where you have a lot of antennas around you. Are you in a place with a lot of EMFs? Do you have a lot of that? Because that'll also affect your mind and body. So it's not just, this is the best that I can do in a class. So if somebody comes to me, then I ask a lot of questions. I get very personal, because in order to help you, I need to know you. And so we actually go through, but the very first thing that we do is deal with nutritional helps. The life's in the blood. One of the things that we recommend is light therapy. Light therapy was used for the firefighters down in 9/11 to remove the heavy metals that they were exposed to. So one of the things that we do for people that are depressed is light therapy. Not everyone needs that, but most people do. And sometimes what we do is just tell them to get some light bulbs, put it in their bedroom, like a lot, and when they wake up, turn it on. Even when it's cloudy. It actually helps. It does. And we do other chelation methods, whatever is available to us. So what I've shown here is trying to get a very large topic into a small amount of time. To deal with mental health is holistic. To deal with anything is holistic. And so we must deal with the whole person, looking at all their traumas, what they've been through, you know, where they are, where they're living, you know, if they've had any past illnesses. All of these things are asked and gotten. If they fell, many different things, so that we can come to a right conclusion and then give a proper prescription that always begins with detox and improving the blood. It always begins with that. And that ends up helping because, again, the principle, the first law of health is the life is in the blood. The second law of health is that proper circulation equals proper health. And you need to deal with all. I even address dress when it comes to health, especially health of the mind. Because if you're not dressing right, you're not going to be thinking right, because you're going to be affecting your circulation. So it's much more holistic than just. Any other questions? Comments? All right, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. Yes? And when we come back, we're going to be talking about COVID. And so let's take a 5-minute break. And when we come back, we will be talking about COVID. All right?